There are moments in life when the soul grows weary from carrying burdens it never expected to bear, seasons that seem longer than they should be, nights that feel heavier than the day. And if you are hearing these words right now, chances are you have walked through one of those seasons. You have endured trials that tested your patience, your strength, and even your faith. There were days when the silence felt louder than any answer, and moments when you wondered if the struggle would ever truly end. But there is something important you must understand about the journey of a chosen one. The path is never ordinary. It is rarely comfortable, and it is almost never easy. Those who are set apart often find themselves walking roads others cannot understand. They face battles that seem unfair, obstacles that appear without warning, and storms that arrive when the sky once seemed clear. Yet hidden within every one of those difficult moments is a purpose greater than the pain itself. You may not have realized it while you were going through it. When the pressure increased and the weight grew heavier, it might have felt as though everything was falling apart. But what looked like destruction was actually preparation. What seemed like delay was actually alignment. And what felt like suffering was shaping something far stronger within you than you ever imagined possible. There are experiences in life that once endured will never be repeated again. Certain battles only come once, because they are not meant to defeat you, but to transform you. The hardship you faced was not random, it was not meaningless. It was the kind of trial that refines a person, the way fire refines gold. The heat is intense, the process is uncomfortable, but the result is something pure, something stronger, something unbreakable. Think about the version of yourself that existed before this season began. The person you were then is not the same person you are now. Back then, you may have relied on things that could easily be taken away. You may have placed trust in circumstances, people, or outcomes that seemed secure at the time. But the storm revealed what was temporary and what was eternal. It stripped away illusions and forced you to discover a deeper kind of strength. That strength did not come from the world around you. It came from something placed within you long before the struggle ever began. A quiet resilience, a faith that refused to disappear even when answers were slow to arrive. The kind of endurance that keeps a person standing when everything around them suggests they should fall. And that is why this moment matters so much, because there comes a point in every great trial when the testing reaches its conclusion. The season of refinement does not last forever. The fire burns only long enough to produce what it was meant to produce. And when that process is complete, something remarkable happens. The burden that once felt endless suddenly lifts. Many people fear that the pain they have known will repeat itself again and again. They assume that if life has been difficult once, it will always remain that way. But that is not how divine purpose works. Some lessons are permanent, and once they are learned, the circumstances that taught them no longer need to return. You have already walked through what you once believed would break you. The sleepless nights, the unanswered questions, the long seasons of waiting, the moments when you wondered whether anyone truly saw what you were carrying. All of it formed a chapter in your life that was never meant to define you forever, but only to prepare you for what comes next. There is a quiet victory in realizing that certain storms have already done their work. The struggle that once felt endless has completed its assignment. The challenge that pushed you to your limits has finished shaping the strength it came to build. And now, without fanfare or loud announcement, a new reality begins to unfold. The remarkable thing about transformation is that it often becomes visible only after the hardest part has passed. While you were inside the battle, you could only see the struggle. You could only feel the pressure. But now something has changed within you. Your perspective is different. Your faith has deepened. Your understanding has grown clearer. The very experience that seemed unbearable has now become proof of what you are capable of enduring, and more importantly, proof that you were never meant to remain in that place forever. Some roads are meant to be traveled only once. Some valleys exist only so that a person can discover the strength required to climb higher than they ever thought possible. The chapter you feared might never close, has quietly reached its final page, and while the memory of the struggle will always remain part of your story, the power it once held over your life has already begun to fade. There are seasons in life that feel as though they were designed to test every corner of the human heart. Seasons when nothing seems to move, when prayers appear to echo back in silence, and when the weight of uncertainty becomes almost unbearable. If you have walked through such a season, then you understand how deeply it can shake a person. You question things you once felt certain about. You begin to wonder whether the struggle will ever end, or whether the hardship has somehow become your permanent reality. Yet there is something extraordinary about the journey of those who are chosen. Their path often includes moments of isolation, long stretches of waiting, and trials that others may never fully understand. These experiences are not accidents. They are not accidents. They are not meaningless detours. They are carefully placed chapters in a story that is far greater than the present moment. The difficulty you faced was not simply a test of endurance. It was shaping something profound within you. When hardship first arrives, it rarely announces its purpose. It simply appears, unexpected and unwelcome. At first it feels like disruption. Your plans begin to unravel. The things you trusted no longer seem stable. Relationships may change. Opportunities may vanish, and the sense of control you once held slips quietly through your fingers. In those moments it can feel as though life itself has turned against you, but the truth is often far different from what it first appears to be. What seems like loss is sometimes preparation. What looks like delay is often protection. And what feels like suffering may actually be transformation, taking place beneath the surface of your life. Just as a seed must remain hidden in darkness before it can grow into something remarkable, there are seasons when a person must endure unseen struggles before the fullness of their purpose begins to emerge. During those difficult moments, you may have asked yourself countless questions. Why is this happening now? Why does the road feel so heavy? Why does it seem as though everyone else is moving forward while you remain in the same place? These questions are natural because the human heart longs for understanding. It wants clarity, reassurance, and evidence that the pain has meaning. But transformation rarely happens in comfortable places. The greatest changes within a person often occur in the quiet battles no one else sees. The moments when you choose to keep believing even when circumstanced. Answers offer no proof, the times when you rise again after disappointment, refusing to allow bitterness or despair to take root in your heart. Each of those choices builds something stronger inside you. Endurance is not something that appears suddenly or effortlessly. It is developed slowly through experience and perseverance. Every challenge you faced added another layer of strength to your character. Every obstacle forced you to discover courage you did not know you possessed, and every moment of waiting taught you patience that cannot be learned in any other way. At the time, it may have seemed as though the struggle was endless. Days blended into weeks, and weeks into months. The progress you hoped for appeared distant, and the answers you longed to hear remained just beyond reach. But even when you could not see it, something important was happening. You were being prepared. Preparation is rarely comfortable, because it requires growth. Growth requires stretching beyond what feels familiar and safe. The old version of yourself, the one that existed before this season began, could not fully step into the future that awaits you now. Certain fears had to fall away. Certain attachments had to loosen their grip. Certain assumptions about life had to be replaced with deeper understanding. That process can feel like loss when it is happening, but it is actually refinement. Imagine a piece of raw metal placed into fire. The heat is intense, and the transformation is not gentle, yet that fire removes impurities and reveals the strength hidden within the material. Without that process, the metal would remain fragile and unformed. The same principle applies to the human spirit. Sometimes the very experiences that feel most difficult are the ones that reveal who you are truly meant to become. And now you stand at a point where something has quietly shifted. The weight that once pressed heavily on your life has begun to lift. The storm that once surrounded you has started to lose its power. What once felt endless has reached its natural conclusion, not because you forced it to end, and not because you escaped the difficulty, but because you endured long enough for its purpose to be fulfilled. This is the moment many people overlook. When the struggle finally loosens its hold, the change is often subtle at first. There is no dramatic announcement, no sudden trumpet declaring that the season has ended. Instead, the shift happens gradually. The heaviness fades. The clarity begins to return. The road ahead no longer feels as dark or uncertain as it once did. You begin to realize that the thing you feared might destroy you has actually strengthened you. The doubts that once whispered in your mind grow quieter. The confidence you thought was lost begins to reappear. And perhaps most importantly, you start to understand that the chapter you endured was never meant to define your entire story. It was a passage, not a destination. The struggle had an assignment, and that assignment is now complete. The lessons have been learned, the resilience has been built, the deeper faith has taken root within your heart, and because of that, the path ahead will not require you to repeat the same battle again. Some storms come only once in a lifetime, because their purpose is to prepare you for everything that follows. There comes a quiet moment after a long and difficult season, when the soul begins to notice something unusual. The pressure that once surrounded every step is no longer as heavy. The constant tension that once lived in the heart begins to loosen its grip. For a long time you may have believed that the struggle would simply continue, that each new day would carry the same weight as the one before it. But almost gently, something begins to change. At first the change is so subtle that it is easy to overlook. You wake up one morning and realize that the same thoughts no longer trouble you the way they once did. Situations that once filled you with anxiety now seem smaller than they appeared before. The storm that once dominated your entire view of life begins to move further into the distance. What once felt like an endless trial slowly becomes a memory of a season you survived. This is the moment when a person begins to understand that certain battles were never meant to be permanent. Some struggles arrive in life with a very specific purpose. They come to strengthen what was weak, to reveal what was hidden, and to shape the character of a person in ways that comfort never could. But once that purpose has been fulfilled, the struggle no longer holds the same authority over your life. For a long time, you may have wondered why the road was so difficult. You may have questioned why the challenges seemed to appear one after another, leaving little time to recover before the next trial arrived. At times it may have felt as though life itself had singled you out for hardship. While others seemed to move forward with ease, your path appeared filled with obstacles and delays. But the truth is that the journey of a chosen one often follows a very different pattern. The preparation required for a greater purpose cannot be shallow or temporary. It must reach deeper places within the heart. It must develop patience where there was once impatience. It must build courage where fear once lived. It must teach perseverance in moments when giving up would have been the easiest choice. That kind of transformation does not happen overnight. It requires experience, it requires time, and sometimes it requires walking through valleys that feel far longer than expected. Yet those valleys are never meaningless. Every step through them leaves behind a lesson, a strength, or a piece of wisdom that could not have been gained any other way. Think about the person you have become through this process. The version of you that existed before this season began might not have understood the depth of resilience you now carry. You might not have realized how strong your spirit could be when everything around you seemed uncertain. You might not have discovered how deeply faith can grow when circumstances offer very little reassurance. But now that strength exists within you, it was formed through patience during long periods of waiting. It was shaped through courage when you chose to keep moving forward, even when the future seemed unclear. It was strengthened through quiet determination when the world around you suggested that surrender would be easier. This kind of growth changes a person permanently. Once you have endured a trial that once felt impossible, the fear of smaller challenges begins to lose its power. The things that once intimidated you no longer carry the same weight. Your perspective shifts, and with that shift comes a new sense of clarity about the path ahead. You begin to see that the struggle you feared most has already finished its work. There is something deeply comforting in realizing that certain hardships belong only to a specific chapter of life. They were never meant to follow you forever. Their role was to prepare you, not to imprison you. Once that preparation is complete, the door to that chapter slowly closes behind you. And as it closes, another door begins to open. This new season may not arrive with sudden excitement or dramatic celebration. Often it begins quietly, with small signs that life is beginning to move again. Opportunities that once seemed distant begin to appear. Connections that once felt strained begin to heal. The road that once seemed blocked begins to reveal new direction. It is not that life suddenly becomes perfect or free of challenges. Every journey still contains moments of uncertainty. But the difference now is that the battle you once fought has already given you what you needed. The strength you carry today is greater than the strength you possessed when the struggle first began. That is why the season you endured does not need to repeat itself. The lesson has already been learned. The endurance has already been developed. The inner foundation that once needed strengthening has now become firm and steady. Because of that, the storm that once surrounded your life no longer has any reason to return. You have passed through it. You have passed through it. There is a quiet victory in recognizing this truth. It is not the loud triumph that the world often celebrates, but something deeper and more lasting. It is the realization that you are no longer standing in the same place where the struggle first found you. You have moved forward even when progress felt slow. You have grown stronger even when you felt weak. You have continued believing, even when answers seemed delayed. And because of that perseverance, the chapter that once seemed endless has finally reached its conclusion. What once felt like a burden you might carry forever has already served its purpose and released its hold. The path before you is no longer the same road that once tested your limits. It is a new stretch of the journey, one that now unfolds with the strength, wisdom, and endurance that were formed within you during the very season you thought would never end. There is a profound shift that occurs in the life of a person who has endured a season that once seemed impossible to survive. It is not merely the end of hardship that defines this moment, but the awareness that something within has changed forever. The trials that once pressed heavily upon your life were not simply obstacles placed in your path. They were instruments shaping the very core of who you were becoming. For a long time you may have believed that the struggle itself was the central story of your life. When difficulties appear repeatedly, it can feel as though the storm has become permanent. Each new challenge adds to the weight already carried, and the mind begins to wonder if peace will ever truly return. Yet there is a truth that only becomes clear after the storm begins to pass. The hardship was never meant to be your identity. It was only meant to prepare you for the next stage of your journey. Preparation often happens quietly beneath the surface of everyday life. While you were focusing on surviving the difficulty, something deeper was unfolding within you. Your perspective began to change. The things that once seemed urgent or important slowly lost their power over you. The values that once guided your decisions were refined, and your understanding of what truly matters began to grow clearer. This transformation rarely announces itself loudly. Instead, it reveals itself through small realizations that gradually reshape the way you see the world. You notice that you are no longer shaken by situations that once would have disturbed your peace. You recognize that your patience has grown stronger, that your faith stands steadier, and that your heart has developed a resilience that did not exist before the struggle began. These changes are not accidental. They are the evidence that the season you endured accomplished its purpose. Many people wish for growth without difficulty, but the truth is that the most meaningful transformation almost always comes through challenge. Comfort can maintain what already exists, but it rarely produces something new. Hardship, on the other hand, forces a pause on to confront deeper questions about life, purpose, and identity. It pushes the soul to search beyond surface answers and discover a stronger foundation. During the long nights of uncertainty, you may have questioned whether the pain you experienced had any real meaning. It might have felt as though the struggle was simply an unfortunate chapter with no clear purpose. But now, as you look back, you can begin to see how each moment contributed to the person you have become. The disappointment that once hurt so deeply taught you to release expectations that were never meant to define your life. The silence you once feared taught you how to listen more carefully to the quiet guidance within your spirit. The waiting that once felt endless taught you patience and trust that could never have been learned in moments of immediate success. Every part of the experience played a role in shaping your character. It is often only after the storm has passed that a person can recognize the strength it produced. While you were standing in the middle of the battle, you were simply trying to endure one day at a time. But endurance itself is a powerful form of victory. Each day you chose to continue, each moment you refused to surrender to despair, you are building a resilience that would carry you far beyond the season of hardship. This is why the ending of such a chapter is not simply about relief. It is about realization. You begin to see that the trials you faced were never greater than the strength being formed within you. What once appeared overwhelming now stands as proof of your perseverance. The obstacles that once seemed immovable now look smaller in comparison to the courage you developed while confronting them. And with that realization comes a deeper sense of confidence about the future. Not the kind of confidence that depends on perfect circumstances or guaranteed outcomes, but a quiet certainty that no matter what lies ahead, you possess the strength to face it. The storm taught you something that comfort never could, that your endurance is greater than you once believed. This understanding changes the way you approach life. Instead of fearing the unknown, you begin to recognize that every challenge carries the potential for growth. Instead of assuming that difficulty means defeat, you understand that it may simply be another stage in the process of becoming stronger. The fear that once held you back begins to fade, replaced by a steadier trust in the journey itself. There is also a sense of freedom that arrives when a person realizes they are no longer bound to the same struggles that once dominated their life. The chapter that tested your limits has already fulfilled its role. The lessons it carried have been learned. The strength it came to build now exists firmly within you. Because of this, the path ahead is no longer the same road you walked before. You carry wisdom that was earned through experience. You possess patience that was shaped through waiting. You hold a deeper understanding of life that only those who have endured true difficulty can fully appreciate. These qualities will guide you as new opportunities appear and new doors begin to open. The season that once felt like an ending was actually preparing you for a beginning far greater than you imagined. Every tear, every moment of doubt, every step taken in faith during the darkest part of the journey has contributed to the foundation on which the next chapter of your life will stand. And that foundation is now stronger than it has ever been before. There is a moment in every difficult journey when the soul begins to recognize that the season of struggle has finally reached its limit. It does not always arrive with a sudden announcement or dramatic sign. Often it begins quietly, like the first light appearing on the horizon after a long and restless night. At first, you may not even realize that something has changed. Yet slowly, gently, the heaviness that once surrounded your life begins to loosen its hold. For a long time, the trials you faced seemed endless. Each challenge felt like another wave crashing against the shore of your strength. You pushed forward, day after day, sometimes wondering how much longer you could continue. The road was difficult, and there were moments when you felt completely alone in your struggle. Even when others were around you, the battle within your heart was something only you truly understood. Yet what you did not see during those moments was that every step forward mattered more than you realized. Each time you refused to give up, you were building something within your spirit that could not easily be broken. Each time you chose faith over despair, patience over frustration, and hope over fear, you were strengthening a foundation that would support the next chapter of your life. Endurance is rarely celebrated while it is happening. When you are living through a difficult season, survival often becomes your only focus. You simply try to make it through the day, through the week, through the moment that feels overwhelming. But survival itself carries a quiet kind of power. It means that despite the weight of the struggle, you continued moving forward. Now you stand at a point where that perseverance has begun to reveal its reward. The storm that once seemed permanent has started to lose its intensity. The obstacles that once appeared immovable no longer hold the same power over your life. The fears that once filled your thoughts have begun to fade as clarity slowly returns. You may not yet see the entire path ahead, but you can sense that the darkness you once walked through is beginning to give way to something brighter. This is what happens when a season has completed its purpose. Trials do not last forever. They arrive for a reason, and when that reason has been fulfilled, their grip on your life begins to loosen. The difficulty you endured was not meant to follow you for the rest of your journey. It was meant to shape you, to strengthen you, and to prepare you for the future that lies ahead. When you look back on the path you have traveled, you may begin to notice something remarkable. The person who entered that season of struggle is not the same person who stands here now. You have grown in ways that were impossible to imagine at the beginning of the journey. Your understanding of life has deepened. Your patience has expanded. Your resilience has become stronger than you once believed possible. These changes are not small or temporary. They are permanent marks of growth that will remain with you long after the memory of the struggle begins to fade. Many people spend their lives searching for strength, yet they never realize that strength is most often formed through experience. It is built in the moments when a person chooses to continue despite fear or uncertainty. It is developed through challenges that demand courage and perseverance, and it is revealed most clearly after the storm has passed. That is where you now find yourself. The chapter that once tested your limits has quietly reached its conclusion. The burden you carried for so long has already begun to fall away. Even if traces of the experience remain in your memory, the power it once held over your life is no longer the same. What once felt overwhelming has now become evidence of your endurance. And with that realization comes a new sense of freedom. You are no longer standing under the same weight that once pressed upon your shoulders. The battle that once consumed so much of your energy has finished its work. The lessons it came to teach have already taken root within you. Because of that, the road ahead will not require you to repeat the same struggle again. This does not mean that life will never present new challenges. Every journey contains moments of uncertainty. But the difference now is that you carry a strength that was forged through experience. The trials that once felt impossible have already proven that you possess the resilience needed to face whatever lies ahead. There is a quiet confidence that begins to grow within a person who has survived a season like the one you endured. It is not loud or boastful. Instead, it is calm and steady, like the deep roots of a tree that has withstood many storms. You know what it means to keep moving forward when the road becomes difficult. You know what it means to trust even when answers are not immediately visible. That knowledge changes the way you approach the future. Instead of fearing every obstacle, you begin to see challenges as moments that can strengthen you further. Instead of assuming that hardship will last forever, you remember that every storm eventually passes. The experience you have gained becomes a source of wisdom, guiding your steps as new opportunities appear before you. And those opportunities will come. The closing of one chapter always makes room for another. The season that once felt like an ending was actually creating space for something new to begin. The struggles you faced cleared away distractions, reshaped your priorities, and prepared your heart for the next stage of your journey. Now the road before you is opening in ways that were impossible to see while the storm surrounded you. The strength you developed during the darkest part of the journey will now guide you through brighter days that lie ahead. The endurance you built will become the foundation for the opportunities that are waiting to unfold. What once felt like the most difficult chapter of your life has already served its purpose, and the path that lies ahead now carries the quiet promise of something far greater than the struggle you have left behind. There are moments in life when a person finally pauses long enough to look back at the road they have traveled. In the middle of struggle, reflection is almost impossible. The weight of the present moment consumes all attention, and survival becomes the only focus. But when the storm begins to pass, and the air grows quieter, the mind slowly gains the ability to see the journey with greater clarity. When you look back now, you may begin to realize just how far you have come. There were days when continuing forward felt nearly impossible. There were moments when the pressure seemed so heavy that you wondered whether your strength would last. Yet somehow, step by step, you kept moving. Even in moments of doubt, something deep within you refused to surrender. That quiet determination is one of the most powerful forces a person can possess. It does not always appear dramatic or impressive from the outside. In fact, many of the strongest acts of perseverance happen in silence, when no one else is watching. Choosing to rise again after disappointment. Choosing to believe when circumstances offer no reassurance. Choosing to hold on to hope when the future seems uncertain. These decisions may appear small in the moment, but together they create the kind of resilience that shapes an entire life. You may not have realized it while the struggle was happening, but every challenge you faced was revealing something important about your character. Each obstacle asked a question: will you continue, or will you give up? And each time you chose to continue, even when the path ahead was unclear, you answered that question with courage. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to move forward despite fear. It is the willingness to take another step, even when the outcome cannot yet be seen. The journey you endured required that kind of courage again and again. There were times when the road seemed empty of encouragement. There were moments when the answers you sought remained silent. Yet you continued walking. That persistence changed you. Before this season began, you may have believed that strength came from certainty. You might have thought that confidence required clear plans and predictable outcomes, but the journey you experienced revealed something deeper. True strength does not depend on perfect circumstances. It grows from the ability to endure uncertainty without losing faith in the possibility of a better future. Now that the struggle has passed, you carry that strength within you. It has become part of your perspective, shaping the way you view the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead. The experiences that once tested your patience have now given you wisdom. The delays that once frustrated you have taught you the value of timing. The moments of silence that once troubled your heart have shown you how to listen more carefully to the quiet guidance that exists within. These lessons cannot be easily forgotten, because they were not simply learned through words or ideas. They were learned through experience. They were written into the story of your life through perseverance, endurance, and faith during moments when the path seemed uncertain. As you stand now at the edge of a new chapter, something remarkable begins to happen within the heart. The fear that once followed every step begins to lose its influence. The uncertainty that once felt overwhelming no longer holds the same power. Instead, a quiet sense of trust begins to take its place. You begin to trust that the road ahead will reveal itself in time. This does not mean that every answer will appear immediately. Life still contains mysteries and moments of waiting. But the difference now is that you have already learned how to walk through uncertainty. The journey behind you has proven that even when the path seems unclear, progress is still possible. There is also a growing awareness that the struggles you faced were not wasted experiences. They served a purpose that extends beyond the difficulty itself. They shaped your perspective, refined your priorities, and strengthened your spirit in ways that will influence everything that comes next. Because of what you have endured, you now possess a deeper understanding of perseverance. You know what it means to remain patient when results take time. You know how to keep moving forward when circumstances appear discouraging. You know how to hold on to hope when others might choose to walk away. These qualities will guide you through the opportunities that are beginning to appear before you. Often, the end of a difficult season creates space for new possibilities. While the storm was present, your attention was focused on survival. But now that the weight has lifted, you have the freedom to look ahead with renewed vision. The road before you may contain doors that once seemed impossible to reach. What once felt like the closing of every opportunity may now reveal itself as preparation for something greater. The delays that frustrated you may have been protecting you from paths that were never meant to be yours. The waiting that tested your patience may have been aligning the right moment for the next stage of your journey. This is why the conclusion of a difficult chapter often carries a sense of quiet triumph. You recognize that you have crossed a threshold that once seemed unreachable. The struggle that once dominated your life has completed its purpose. It shaped you, strengthened you, and prepared you for the future in ways that comfort never could. Now you move forward, not as the person who once feared the storm, but as the person who has already survived it. The endurance you developed has become part of your character. The faith you held during uncertain moments has become part of your foundation. And because of that transformation, the road ahead is no longer the same path you once walked, but a new journey unfolding with strength, wisdom, and confidence that were born from the very challenges you thought might defeat you.